Who are the wise men that visited Jesus? Well, let's talk about that. Hey, I'm Pastor John. First off, I want to say a big thank you to my friend Billy, who got me an awesome Star Trek mug to add to my collection. That will be a fine thing for me to use as I ponder scripture and ponder all of these different things that we need to think about. So, the wise men. Who are the wise men that visited Jesus? We're familiar with this story from countless songs, We Three Kings of Orient Are, and other things like that. Perhaps the most common way that we know about the wise men is from our nativity sets. Boop. There we go. There's the one in our church. It's on the entrance to the church, and we see the wise men. We know they're the wise men because they've got the crowns and they're jeweled, surrounding Mary, Joseph, and the baby Jesus. So they're a very common fixture in our cultural understanding of the birth of Jesus, and so it's worth thinking about what that might mean, who they are, and well, where does this information come from? Well, first about where it comes from, in the Gospel of Matthew, in the second chapter, it says wise men from the east. The Greek term Magi is used, and it doesn't mention them being royalty or anything like that. They would have been scholars, academics, perhaps astronomers, perhaps folks who, well, there's a lot of different kind of theories about who they were, but they had discerned through different signs that a new king of the Jews had been born. So they came to Jerusalem, they came to Israel looking for this new king of the Jews. They knew he was going to be an important person. We celebrate this coming to see the baby Jesus, or the young person Jesus, we'll talk about that in a minute, as the Epiphany, which means the revelation, the being made known. This being the first time that folks outside of the people of Israel had heard about Jesus or came to worship him. So, wise men from the east. That's a good place to start. We don't know from where in the east, but somewhere in the Orient. And in our picture and a lot of other pictures, they do have kind of an Oriental, what we Americans would think of as an Oriental vibe to their clothes or their personages. And so they come to visit Jesus and pay him homage. They bring royal gifts and they give those to Jesus. They stop by the palace of the king of Jerusalem, King Herod's palace, and try to get directions. And well, I'm getting ahead of myself. There is so much information. It's kind of hard to narrow it all down. So the wise men came. We don't know how many there were. We don't know what their exact roles were. Being kings was not mentioned. We certainly don't know their names. Now, in the Roman Catholic tradition, they do have names given to them, and well, I'm not a Roman Catholic, so bear with me. But my understanding is that the church tradition is placed on the same level of importance, level of priority as the scripture is. So they believe that the names that they have for these three visitors are accurate. If we go by scripture, they are unnamed. They are not numbered. We don't know how many there were. We just know that there was more than one, and we don't know exactly what their roles were in their respective countries. So we have these wise men appearing, and they are lumped together with the Mary, Joseph, and the baby in the manger, and that's not exactly how it worked in Scripture. Our nativity sets, again, let me bring this back up. Our nativity sets are conflating two completely separate stories. Mary, Joseph, and the baby in the manger, that's the birth narrative out of the second chapter of Luke. The three wise men are out of the second chapter of Matthew, and it simply says, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to visit him. So there's they're two separate things. The reason I'm going on about this, the reason I'm making such a big deal about this is it's really easy for us to make assumptions. Assume that we know things, assume that we understand things when we may not actually do so. The hard truth of the matter is that sometimes we've just got to say we don't know. And there's not a person alive who enjoys admitting that they don't know something, me included. But the only way to be a rational Christian, and I know some folks would say that that is not a possible thing to be, but the only thing to be a faithful, rational Christian is to let the Scripture say what it says. Try to interpret what it's actually saying rather than what we think it says. We can't assign meaning. We can't read into the text what we want to get out of it. Because if you go looking for something, especially in Scripture, because there's so much of it and so many different voices, so many different things going on, if you go looking for something, you'll find it. And that can be good and bad, mostly bad. So we need to focus on letting Scripture speak to us. Now, is it a bad thing that we see the three wise men, the three kings from the Orient, we three kings of Orient are, there with the baby Jesus? No, it's not a bad thing, but we need to realize that it's not actually what Scripture says. So it's not wrong, but if there was a question about, if we needed to set this up to, if we needed to think more deeply about the visitation or the birth narrative, we need to realize that those are coming from two different sources, two different accounts, with Matthew and Luke having different purposes of writing their accounts of the birth and life and teachings of Jesus, and trying to do different things with them. And that's not wrong. That's not trying to be deceptive. That's not trying to fool anybody. That is just trying to convey what the person and work of Jesus, what it meant then, what it means now, and how it should impact each of us. So the wise men, we don't know their names. We don't know how many. We don't even really know where they went. The Gospel of Matthew goes on to say that they get directions from King Herod, and they go and visit the child in the house where he is. Nothing is mentioned about a barn or a stable or a manger or anything like that. And so we've got to let Scripture speak to us. It's really, really easy for us to assume things and to not let Scripture speak to us rather than us reading into it what we want to find. That's a real danger. And I'm sad to say that I've seen a lot of Christians doing that, cherry picking scriptures to prove their point. And we can't do that. We as Christians, we as Christ followers, are the ones who are being taught and shaped and molded by the teachings of Christ, and how we apply that each and every day. So, the visit of the three kings, the epiphany of the Lord, is important. That the world outside of Judea is going to be impacted by the person and work and death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. That's a big deal, and it's not just for Jews; it's for everybody. And that was made clear from back in the very beginning, back in the Old Testament, that it would be for everyone. And so this beginning of the I guess you could say the work of Jesus outside Jerusalem, outside Israel, is a big deal. So we thank God for that. We thank God that He's made space for everybody, not just a select few. So, if you have questions about this particular story, about the other goings on in Scripture, or anything else like that, let me throw my email address up there, and I'll be glad to talk to you about that. As you may have noticed, this format is us talking about Scripture. I've done lots of Bible studies that you're welcome to check out. But this really is talking about Scripture, how it impacts us, and things like that. I had somebody fussing that I wasn't reading enough Scripture. Well, this is talking about Scripture and how we live our lives as Christ followers. So, if you have questions, thoughts, comments, shoot me an email, and I'll be glad to talk about it more. And we'll be back next week with other things that we can learn from Scripture and things that we can apply to be a better Christian and a better person. So you guys have a blessed week, and hope to see you in church on Sunday. Take care.